But this week reminding me that waiting in itself, like it isn't inactivity, it's obedience without answers. And that kind of obedience costs more than action ever does. And here's something that surprised me this week. I'm going to shift away from this for a second because I'm just going to get emotional if I talk about that song and being in the waiting. I'm just going to move on from that because I probably will just full on cry. Um, but something positive that came out of this, I realized how much time I got back. And that's not just time I would have spent actively on Instagram, but the mental space it took up without me even realizing it. Because even when you're not scrolling, Instagram like still lives in your head. I don't know if it's that way for you, but it is for me. Like, what reels do I need to create? Did I post stories today? Are there DMs I need to respond to? Like, what content is underperforming? What should I be doing instead? Like, that mental load is heavy. And I think like a lot of like content creators can kind of relate to that, especially like in the business world. And when my account disappeared, that noise went quiet like overnight. I stopped instinctively reaching for my phone. I stopped checking out of habit. And you don't realize how often I just open Instagram for no reason at all. And I stopped carrying that constant background pressure. And what surprised me most is how much I got done. I knocked out projects I'd been putting off for months. I made progress in areas of my business that had been sitting on the back burner. I moved the needle in places I always said I didn't have time for. And I had to be honest with myself. It wasn't just that Instagram took time, it took energy, it took focus, it took decision making capacity, and it took mental margin. And without that constant pull, I felt clearer, I felt calmer and more present. And while my income has taken a hit, and I'm not minimizing that, I can also see that this is a strange kind of gift, like a forced slowdown, a reset, an invitation to build parts of my business that don't depend on constant visibility or constant output. And I don't know yet what all this means long term, but I do know this. The time and the clarity I got back this week mattered. And I'm choosing to see that as a blessing, even if it came wrapped in loss. Coming to peace with that truth has been one of the hardest parts of this week because if I'm honest, I want my dang account back. I really do. But I've had to get to a place where I can say, if it's not meant for me, I don't want it back. And that's not a resignation. That's not me just completely giving up, but that's surrender. Surrender to a greater plan that I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll have an answer tomorrow. Maybe I'll never know. But that's just kind of where I'm at now. But it took me a lot of wrestling this week to get there. So, what I want to say to you, I don't think the lesson here is don't use social media. I also don't think the lesson is fear because I don't want you to be scared that if you have an account, you're going to lose it. Like, I think the lesson for me, at least, is depth. And what I mean by that, it's deeper diversification, deeper stewardship, and deeper preparation. And not from panic, but from wisdom. Just knowing what I know now, not just more platforms, but more ownership, not just more income, but more wisdom with it, not just building fast, but building in a way that can survive loss. Because the truth is, there is no reason I shouldn't be more financially insulated. I'm kind of a chronic spender, I'm working on it. But there's also no reason why more of my income shouldn't be working for me outside of social media. There's no reason my family's stability should hinge on an app. And this week forced me to look honestly at stewardship, not just income, but margin. How much margin do we actually have? How prepared are we for disruption? And instead of seeing that as a failure, again, I'm choosing to just see that as clarity. Like the realization has been sobering and honestly necessary. So as I rebuild, as I figure this out, and it's funny, I kind of already was going into this year, 2026, with a different mindset on money and how we had these plans to really start saving and finish off the rest of our debt and start putting away and really investing hard. And it's just funny. It's like we finally got on, my husband and I finally got on the same page financially because he's been wanting to save money for a lot. And we have, but not to the like rate that we could. And it's like we were finally on that same page going into this year and like we were starting that process and putting more back for retirement, doing all the things, really trying to get like our house paid off and other little debts that we have hanging around. And it's just funny. It's like we were starting to move in that right direction and then all this happened. And so, um, but that just made me realize deeper how necessary all of that is. So, for anyone listening, I want to share this also for anyone who might one day walk through something similar because this kind of loss can kind of feel isolating. And don't get me wrong, I've received a ton of support from family, friends, a lot of my students. Um, so many people have been so kind and so comforting and sent me so many kind words, but it's like I'm the one that lost my account. And so it can feel isolating and it can feel really confusing and can feel a little personal too from Instagram. So, losing a platform, losing income, losing control, losing certainty. It's okay if it shakes you, and it's okay if you wrestle, and it's okay if you don't immediately know what God is doing. Waiting is still faith, and sometimes obedience looks like continuing to show up, even when the results are out of your hands. And if you're listening to this, and if you're walking through your own version of loss or disruption, I want to leave you with just a few things to sit with. Not things you need to fix today, not a checklist, just some things to reflect on. Like, first, I would just encourage you to ask yourself like what this season might be revealing, not just what it took. Sometimes loss shows us what we were leaning on without even realizing it. And that awareness isn't a punishment to you, it is preparation for what you can do next. And second, I want you to remember that diversification is wisdom, but stewardship goes even deeper than that. And being in multiple places matters. I tell my students this all the time, like you can't just rely on one thing. I've had one thing stripped from me multiple times. I've lost businesses in the past. Like I've talked about, my husband lost his job when during COVID when I was how many weeks, months pregnant. I was in my second trimester. We were about to have our first baby. We were about to buy a house. And in that moment, he lost his job out of nowhere. We had to back out of the house we were buying. We had to keep renting and we had no income. So trust me when I say, like, I have felt loss outside of this too. Like, losing a job, I feel like is one of the worst things when it comes to work and stuff because you just don't prepare for it. And like for me, this kind of compares to that. It's like kind of like I lost a job in a way. So being in multiple places matters, having multiple income streams matters, but so does margin. Having margin with what you're making as well and being a good steward of that money. And also, what matters, like, so does rest, so does clarity, so does building things you actually own, like an email list, like maybe a podcast. I don't know. And it's funny, it's like I don't even like want to start a podcast. It's really not even because it's like, well, I want to like have my mark on something that like isn't controlled by social media. That's really not it. I really just wanted to film this week because I just wanted to tell this story. And that is what I want this platform to be is like what I'm learning, what I'm going through. Maybe it'll be boring at times. Maybe it'll be really interesting. Maybe it'll be really happy. Maybe it'll be really sad. I don't know what it's all going to be, but it's like I really just want this to be a place where I can just share what's going on. But all that to say, if you're walking through something similar, some type of business or income or opportunity lost, those things, building that margin, that rest, that clarity, like those things don't come from platforms. They come from how you build them. And third, I don't want you to confuse waiting with nothing happening. And I'm partially saying this to myself too. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. Some of the most important rebuilding happens quietly. It happens internally and it happens behind the scenes when no one's watching. And you don't have to rush that clarity. You don't have to force meaning out of a hard season every single time. You're allowed to just be where you are and trust that growth will come in the time that it's supposed to come. So, and I want to end with this. Like, no matter what happens next, whether my account comes back or doesn't, I know I'll be okay because I know how to rebuild. I've done it before. I've rebuilt after setbacks. I've rebuilt after losses. I've rebuilt when things didn't go according to plan, and I know that I can do it again. Not because I have all the answers, not because I'm immune to hard seasons. Lord knows I'm not, but because I've learned how to adapt. I've learned how to pivot and how to keep going even when things fall apart. And I do that because of my faith, and I do that because of my relationship that I have with Jesus. And I know that no matter what, like, it's gonna be okay. And if it's not for me, if I don't get it back, then I don't want it. I didn't need it in the first place. So this isn't the end of my story. It's just a chapter. Whatever comes next, I'll rebuild it in whatever way I need to, with faith, with wisdom, and with what I've learned along the way. So thank you for joining me for this first episode. That's really all I wanted to say. I just wanted to share this story in the hopes that maybe it touches one person. If one person listens to this and it just gives you a little bit of hope or it gives you some clarity or just gives you anything, maybe it's just entertaining. Maybe that's what it is, then I guess this was worth doing. So, all right. I'm signing off. Bye, y'all.